Today's movie is set in Falkenheim, where the German army is starting to collapse. This city is the home of a 10-year-old boy called Jojo, who has his imaginary friend, Adolf Hitler. Jojo can't tie his shoes or depend on himself, but he is patriotic and loyal to his own country. He's a believer in Nazi ideals and doctrines. Jojo wants to help his country during the Second World War, and that's why he joined the Kids Army. Nazi Germany organized this army to use kids who reached 10 years old in the war. Jojo's friend is called Yorkie. They spend time together in a camp led by Captain Klenzendorf with his right-hand man Freddy and his right-hand woman Fräulein, who is responsible for girls. Kids wear military uniforms and they take a knife before starting training on different activities like throwing bombs, digging trenches, reading maps, and using gas against enemies. Fräulein teaches the girls to treat wounds and make beds for soldiers. Jojo does well in training, but when it comes to fights, he gets scared and bolts. This catches the eye of older boys. When the time comes for boys to learn how to kill rabbits, older boys notice to what extent Jojo is hesitant, holding the rabbit in his arms instead of killing it. When one of the teenagers asks him to kill the rabbit, accusing Jojo of cowardice, Jojo swears he isn't scared, but he can't bring himself to kill living beings. Jojo lets the rabbit go, but the teenager gets hold of it before it can run away, and he kills it himself. Teenagers make fun of Jojo and they call him Jojo Rabbit because he's as scared as a rabbit, which upsets Jojo. He runs away into the woods. He sits on a tree root and suddenly his imaginary friend Hitler pops up. Hitler tells him that rabbits are actually brave. They go out into the wilderness to get carrots and they have to be smart not to be caught by wild animals. Hitler encourages Jojo to be a brave rabbit. So Jojo goes back to the camp where Klenzendorf is training the kids how to throw grenades. Jojo rushes toward him and takes the grenade from his hand. Jojo keeps running in the woods with the grenade in his hand. He badly throws it away on a tree. It bounces back at Jojo's feet, exploding on his face. Jojo faints away, so he is taken to the hospital. He has a hazy memory of the people who helped him and of Rosie visiting him at the hospital. Jojo wakes up days later in his room. The first thing he notices is that he limps when he walks. When looking at the mirror, he sees the scars on his face. His mother comes to check on him. She hugs him and tells him that she'll always be around and won't leave him like his father or sister who were gone. She helps him to wear his uniform again to take him back to the kids' camp. They found Klenzendorf there awkwardly feeding Finkel. Klenzendorf has already been fired for his negligence and carelessness. Rosie kicks him with her knee under his belly, then slaps him with her gloves, making him promise he'll give Jojo work to do, even if it's not on the battlefield. That's because her son feels that he should help the National Army. Jojo was assigned to put up propaganda posters around the city and deliver leaflets to recruit soldiers. He does so with a lot of enthusiasm. One day while he is working, he finds his mom staring at hanged people in the public square. Jojo asks his mom, what did they do to get hanged? She replies that they were hanged for what they could do, not what they did. When Jojo goes back home, his mother isn't there, so he feels anxious as he hears noises coming from the room of his dead sister. He enters the room to see what's going on. He finds a weird mark on the floor and it goes up the wall, so he takes his knife and opens a part of the wall. He finds behind it a space large enough for him to crawl into. He's shocked to see a girl called Elsa who follows him. He runs away from her, yelling in fear. Elsa catches him before he reaches the door and pushes him against the door. She shows him that she has a knife and confesses that she's Jewish. She tells him that his mom, Rosie, allowed her to hide in the house. Elsa threatens him that if he tells anyone about her, she'll report him and Rosie for helping her. This means that they'll get accused of betrayal, which can get them killed. After giving the knife back to Jojo, Elsa returns to her hiding spot. Jojo goes back to his room to talk to Hitler about Elsa. After their discussion, they come to the conclusion that Jojo should negotiate with her. So, Jojo grabs a kitchen knife and puts a pot on his head to protect himself. He returns to his sister's room to tell Elsa to hide somewhere else. Suddenly, she surprises and scares him from behind. She takes away his kitchen knife and kicks him out of the room. Jojo returns to his room again and talks with Hitler. Hitler suggests that Jojo should make Elsa feel safe, so she lets her guard down. At night, when Rosie comes back home, Jojo tells her about the noises in his sister's room. His mom lies to him and says it's probably just rats. After tucking her son in bed, she goes to check on Elsa and tells her to be careful because if something bad were to happen, she'd choose to save her son. The next day, Jojo goes to the swimming pool to help him heal his legs. There he sees Klenzendorf and Finkel sitting next to one another and showing fear of Rosie. When his mom leaves, he heads toward them to ask about what to do if he found a Jewish person. Klenzendorf replies that he should call the Gestapo, who will kill them and whoever tried to help them. Jojo also asks, how would he know if a person is Jewish or not? Klenzendorf says he has no idea and that someone should write a book about that. When Jojo returns home, he tries to talk to Elsa again, after declaring a truce with her because neither of them should report the other to spare troubles. He lets her stay in the house in exchange for information about Jews so that he can write a book about them. Elsa agrees and points out that Jews are people just like Jojo. But because he can't believe that, she says that they are demons that love money and are allergic to food. Jojo understands that she is planning for him to get her some food. He gets angry and says that his race is higher and stronger than Jews. She gets infuriated, grabs him, and covers his mouth. She tells him that Jews aren't weak. Then she goes back to her hiding spot. Once she is home, Rosie burns some papers in the fireplace and pours a glass of wine for herself. She also plays music. She's very happy because the Allies have taken Italy and France as their next target. Jojo argues with his mom because she's against his nation. So Rosie ends the discussion and tells him to finish his food. Rosie leaves the table and says she doesn't feel hungry. Jojo immediately suspects that she is giving her food to Elsa, so he decides to eat his mom's leftovers. Jojo misses his father, so Rosie puts on her husband's clothes and draws a beard on her face. She yells at her son for talking rudely with his mom. She imitates her husband's voice and tells Jojo to take care of his mother because she's doing her best for her son. Then she turns up the music and they start dancing. The next day, Jojo gives a pen and paper to Elsa for her to draw where Jewish people live. Elsa starts drawing, but she refuses to answer Jojo's questions about her family, even though she tells him about her fiancé Nathan, who is fighting with the resistance. The picture she has drawn is of Jojo. She's added an arrow on his head because Jews actually live in Jojo's mind. An idea crosses Jojo's mind. He writes a letter pretending to be Nathan to break up with Elsa. He reads it to her, so she feels upset and goes back to her hiding spot. Seeing her hurt in that way, Jojo feels guilty about the whole plan. He writes another letter pretending to be Nathan again to tell her that the first letter is fake and that he still loves Elsa. Elsa thanks him and asks him to bring her more letters in the future. Then they start playing this game together. One day, Jojo and Rosie go for a walk next to a river. His mom tells him how different this place used to be. There were a lot of people dancing, and the ambiance was full of love and warmth. Rosie tells her son that kids shouldn't discuss politics. Instead, they should be playing or climbing trees. Everyone should dance as a sign of freedom. Jojo isn't convinced and he takes off with his bike. His mom follows him. On the road, they see a truck of soldiers returning home from the war, looking upset and defeated. Jojo goes back to his house in a bad mood. Elsa tries to cheer him up, so she tells him about the adventures of the Jews. Jojo starts to feel comfortable around her, which infuriates Hitler. He scolds him for liking a Jewish person. When Jojo goes to sleep, Rosie spends time with Elsa and tells her that she's happy she has her around because she reminds her of her daughter. The next day, Jojo goes to the headquarters of the kids' army and he tells Klenzendorf that he's writing a book on Jews. They laugh at him because they don't believe him. Klenzendorf assigns Jojo to collect scrap from the war. While walking the streets dressed as a robot, Jojo sees his mom spreading anti-Nazi leaflets. He meets his friend Yorkie, who is assigned to be a soldier in the army. When Jojo tells him he captured a Jew, Yorkie replies he saw one himself in the woods, but can't understand why all of this is happening to the Jews and they seem like normal people, which gives Jojo a lot to think about. Jojo goes back home. He gives Elsa colored pencils that he found in the scrap. He reminds her that it is illegal for a Nazi and a Jew to be friends. Elsa tells him that he's not a Nazi because he didn't hurt her and he's just a lonely kid with no place to belong to. Elsa notices how sweaty and dirty she's become, so Jojo allows her to take a bath and wear his dead sister's clothes. They're about to have dinner when there's a knock at the door. Elsa rushes to her hiding spot. Jojo opens the door and finds a group of Gestapo led by Herman. Right after them, Klenzendorf and Finkel arrive to tell Herman that they had to bring Jojo's notebook. The Gestapo starts searching the house. Herman asks Jojo why his mom is out and why he doesn't have his knife. Elsa shows up and pretends to be Jojo's sister. She tells them that she took the knife from Jojo because her brother used it to annoy her. So Herman goes to search the room of Jojo's sister. He is still suspicious of her, so he asks her about her papers. Elsa grabs the ID of Jojo's sister and hands it to Klenzendorf. When he asks her about her date of birth, she thinks about it and then guesses correctly. Klenzendorf lets her go. But Herman sees Jojo's book about Jews. The whole Gestapo goes through it, laughing about how Jojo drew the Jews. Klenzendorf doesn't laugh like the others. Elsa feels sad to see the part where Jojo describes the different ugly ways that Nathan should die. The Gestapo leaves because they found nothing suspicious. Klenzendorf gives the ID back to Elsa and the knife to Jojo, and then he leaves. Elsa discovers that the date she told to Klenzendorf was actually different from that on the ID. This means that Klenzendorf was helping them, and he is biased towards Jews all along. Jojo said that no one knows his sister is dead, so Elsa can pretend to be his sister and live with them normally. Elsa is still upset because of Jojo's book, so she tells him that they shouldn't be friends. Hitler yells at Jojo for trying to befriend Elsa. When Jojo goes out to get some food, he unfortunately finds his mom hanged in the public square because she betrayed the Nazis. Jojo cries his eyes out, clinging to Rosie's legs. He's so devastated that he even tries to tie his mom's shoes, and when he doesn't know how to do it, he cries even more. He stares at his mom for hours. Then he goes back home with his knife out, blaming Elsa for the death of his mother. When he tries to stab her, Elsa catches his hand in time. Jojo starts crying again. Elsa feels sorry for him and tries to comfort him. She tells him that she knew from the start that Rosie was with the resistance and that his dad is still alive and he is a part of the resistance as well. But Rosie didn't tell him that, so he didn't get upset. Elsa confesses that all her family was captured, so they both have no one else but one another. Jojo starts going to the streets to search for food in the rubbish bin. While walking the streets, he notices how devastated the city is becoming day after day due to the wars. One day, the city is a mess due to the invasion of the Allies, taking advantage of Hitler, the real one killing himself. Jojo meets his friend Yorkie, who is holding a weapon because the army accepted kids to fight for the lack of soldiers. Yorkie tells Jojo that the Jewish person he caught is his girlfriend now, and he's worried because it's illegal. Yorkie says that he met the Russians and the Japanese and he finds them worse than the Jews. Fräulein sees them. She gives a gun to Yorkie and a Nazi jacket to Jojo so he won't be shot by accident. Suddenly, a bomb explodes. Jojo is watching people fighting, including kids and adults, also Klenzendorf and Finkel. Jojo is too scared to be a part of this fighting. He runs to hide in a desolate building. Not until everything calms down does Jojo come out. He sees Americans put away the Nazi flag and replace it with their flag. Soviet soldiers catch the Nazi soldiers, including Hermann and the Gestapo. When they see Jojo's jacket, they catch him as well. Jojo meets Klenzendorf, who tells him that he's a good boy and he should look after his sister. Klenzendorf takes Jojo's jacket and spits at him, calling him a Jew. So the soldiers let Jojo go after believing he is a Jew. Jojo sees how the soldiers drag Klenzendorf to hang him. On his way home, Jojo finds Yorkie, who says he'll go home to see his mother, and he tells Jojo that finally his girlfriend will be free now. So Jojo rushes home to see Elsa, but he decides to tell her that the Nazis won the war so that she doesn't leave him. Yet, after going through his book and seeing his mom's drawings and a rabbit in a cage, Jojo reads a letter from Nathan to tell her about a plan to run away from the city. Then, Elsa confesses that Nathan actually died last year of tuberculosis, but she found the letters comforting. Jojo confesses that he loves her, but he knows that she considers him like a brother. He decides to help her escape. The imaginary Hitler gets angry and tries to change his mind, but Jojo is infuriated, so he kicks him out of the window. Elsa is worried about going out of the house, but Jojo encourages her to do so. Elsa goes out of the door. At this moment, a car crosses the street with an American flag right in front of Elsa. She understands that Jojo has lied to her, so she slaps him on the face, but she forgives him and they start dancing together to celebrate their freedom.